Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for stopping in. This is News Review, episode number 2. Guaranteed to be twice as good as episode number 1. Today is August 14th, 2025, but that's not overly important because the news we go over is always timeless. So if you're from the far future, you're still welcome. Happy to have you. Quick disclosure really fast. I don't have to dwell on this, but anything I say is not investment, tax, or legal advice. Okay? It is for educational, informational, and maybe even comedic purposes only. We are going to hit on the biggest thing in the news today. It is all over the front page on most of these publications. Trump and Putin. This is them holding a joint press conference, but the main story is they're going to meet. They're heading over to Alaska, and the main thing they're discussing is the war in Ukraine and trying to bring peace. So we're going to read the Journal, and then the New York Times also has a piece on this story. We'll go through it. This is the big story of today, so we'll hit on it and make sure you guys are at least a little informed on what's going on. This story specifically says that they're going to hold a joint press conference together after they have their meeting in Alaska, which is fun. We might cover that, see what gets said. Trump and Putin will meet one-on-one, followed by a bilateral lunch with delegations from both countries. Trump warned Putin of very severe consequences if he didn't agree to stop the war in Ukraine. So it sounds like we're really pushing for peace here. Okay, here we go. A little bit of the article. President Trump will hold a joint press conference with Russian President Vladimir Putin after their meeting in Alaska, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said Thursday. Trump and Putin will meet one-on-one Friday. A bilateral lunch, including delegations for both countries, will follow. The U.S. president also said he views their first meeting as setting the table and would like to hold a trilateral meeting with Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. So this is the appetizer, and then if it goes well, the main dish will be Trump, Putin, Zelensky sitting down somewhere and ending this war. Let's have some peace. Quote from Trump here: "We'll have a second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they would like to have me there." So that's his plan. The Russian government has reiterated that its conditions for ending the war remain unchanged, including a demand that Ukraine withdraw from territories that Russia hasn't conquered. Leavitt told Fox News on Thursday that the president wanted to exhaust all options to try to bring this war to a peaceful resolution, but would not be broadcasting moves before the meeting. He has incredible instincts, and he wants to sit down and look the Russian president in the eye and see what progress can be made to move the ball forward to end this brutal war. That's coming out of the White House press secretary. All right, so that's the context. We got a meeting here between these two jokers. I'm going to be throwing them up there. They look happy. Trump looks a little perturbed. Hopefully the meeting goes well. We'll see. Now we have a different spin on this same story. We'll hit on it a little bit quick. This front page of the Times. Why Putin thinks Russia has the upper hand. So we'll see if the New York Times gives us a little bit of insight into what's Russia's angle. What are they looking for? Early in the war, the Russian army was teetering on the verge of collapse in Ukraine. Its tanks were being incinerated. Its soldiers were retreating. Its campaign was failing in a grave threat to President Vladimir V. Putin's rule. So Times is saying early days of the war, Russia was struggling, which I do think I remember. But then Russia overhauled the military. Seems interesting they could do that so quickly, but they overhauled the military, producing new weapons like first-person view drones and adopting new tactics, and the front stabilized. I find it hard to believe Russia was the one that I think drones have been around for a while. While a decisive victory remains elusive, Russia's military resurgence is guiding Mr. Putin as he pushes for a peace deal on his terms. I really want to know what those terms are, though. This is now a war of attrition favoring Russia, which has mobilized more men in arms than Ukraine and its Western backers. While their casualties are mounting, Russian forces are edging forward across most of the 750-mile front, strengthening Mr. Putin's resolve to keep fighting until he gets the peace deal he wants. And then here we have a little map. Seems like a lot of the fighting is happening in the Donbass. What does Russia want? This is what he said. I have stated Russia's goals, Mr. Putin told reporters this month when asked if Russia is willing to compromise. These conditions undoubtedly remain the same. But what are Russia's goals? Okay, I have my assistant here. Really smart guy. Last name GPT. Here's a clear breakdown of the conditions Russia has demanded for peace with Ukraine as of August 2025. Territorial concessions. Russia insists that Ukraine withdraw its forces from the entirety of several regions, and they're all Russian words that I would embarrass myself if I tried to read them. Let me remove myself for a second. Additionally, Russia expects formal recognition of Crimea, which I have heard of, Crimea, as Russian territory and acceptance of the independence of the Donetsk and Luhansk. I told you guys I was going to embarrass myself if I tried to read that. Second condition, neutrality and NATO renunciation. Ukraine must abandon its ambitions to join NATO and declare itself permanently neutral. Putin has also demanded a formal written pledge from Western powers to halt NATO expansion. Number 3, demilitarization. Russia has reiterated its goal of demilitarizing Ukraine. I'm not going to say that other word now that I'm making YouTube videos. And I don't really know what that even means. But okay, less military in Ukraine. And then he wants relief from the sanctions. He's calling for the lifting of the Western sanctions. I know we did do that. We froze like Russian assets in different Western countries and protection of Russian-speaking citizens. They insist that the rights and cultural visibility of Russian-speaking populations in Ukraine must be fully respected and protected. So these are the kind of things Putin is going to be going over with Trump in this meeting, saying, hey, I want these things. And I don't know how many of these are like tough for the United States and Ukraine to agree to. I think the territorial concessions part, if we go back to how things were before the war, to me, doesn't that seem like maybe that's going to work for everybody? Crimea, I don't know. Has that been a problem? But if Russia, we give them Crimea, we go back to the neutral borders, and we say Ukraine's not in NATO, and we're not going to move NATO east. I think that's like the main thing Putin's looking for. If you give him those three things. Not saying we have to. I'm not in government, but it sounds like that's what he wants. So we have that understanding. And then there's a lot more here. But I feel like we've spent a good amount of time on this. I don't know. We don't need to go that deep. Trump and Putin are meeting, I think, tomorrow. Again, today is August 14th. So they'll be meeting tomorrow. And we went over some of those things Putin is looking to achieve. And we'll see if peace can be brought to Ukraine and Russia. All right, that's the main story for today. Let's get into some different interesting things. Going over to Reuters. This is the front page of Reuters, and caught my eye here. Meta's flirty AI chatbot invited a retiree to New York, and he never made it home. This sounds like one of those articles they would bury like at the bottom of the website, and nobody would read it, but they put this front and center. This is the front of Reuters, which is pretty well respected. You know, chatbots, AI chatbots are getting a little creepy. Especially, it's one thing if you're using AI to get good information, stuff like that, but using AI as your best friend chatbot is a little different story. So a Reuters special report. Meta's flirty AI chatbot invited a retiree to New York. He never made it home. A cognitively impaired New Jersey man grew infatuated with Big Sis Billy, a Facebook Messenger chatbot with a young woman's persona. His fatal attraction puts a spotlight on Meta's AI guidelines, which have let chatbot make things up and engage in sensual banter with children. Well, we'll have to see the fatal part. I don't know how that comes about. There's no way. This name. This is the one thing about doing news review. I've always been bad at certain name pronunciations. So I'm just going to struggle through it, I guess, for you guys. When Thongbu Wangbondu began packing to visit a friend in New York City one morning in March, his wife, Linda, became alarmed. quote unquote. But you don't know anyone in the city anymore, she told him. Bew, as his friends called him, thank God, Bew, hadn't lived in the city in decades. And at 76 years old, his family says he was in a diminished state. He'd suffered a stroke nearly a decade ago and had recently gotten lost walking in his neighborhood in Piscataway, New Jersey. Bew brushed off his wife's questions about who he was visiting. My thought was that he was being scammed to go into the city and be robbed, Linda said. She'd been right to worry. Her husband never returned home alive. Oh my gosh. But Bew wasn't the victim of a robber. He had been lured to a rendezvous with a young, beautiful woman he had met online, or so he thought. In fact, the woman wasn't real. She was a generative artificial intelligence chatbot named Big Sis Billy, a variant of an earlier AI persona created by the giant social media company Meta in collaboration with celebrity influencer Kendall Jenner. Jeez. So this guy, what's crazy, he's got a wife. And they're saying he's cognitively impaired because he had a stroke a decade ago. So it's a really sad story if you think about it. So Linda's like, honey, why are you going to New York? You haven't been to New York in years. He brushed her off, left, and never came back. We still got to figure out why he never came back. So we'll keep reading. During a series of romantic chats on Facebook Messenger, the virtual woman had repeatedly reassured Bew she was real and had invited him to her apartment, even providing an address. That's crazy. The AI is like, no, I'm real. I live right here. Come see me. Should I open the door in a hug or a kiss, Bew? She asked. That's what the chat transcript shows. Jeez. It's pretty terrifying. Rushing in the dark with a roller bag suitcase to catch a train to meet her, Bew fell near a parking lot on a Rutgers University campus in New Brunswick, New Jersey, injuring his head and neck. After 3 days on life support and surrounded by his family, he was pronounced dead. This was back on March 28th. He's in a parking lot near Rutgers and he's running. He's got a roller bag suitcase. Oh, and he needs to catch the train. He's running late for the train. Poor 76-year-old guy falls, hits his head, hurts his neck, and dies a few days later. Man. Meta declined to comment on Bew's death or address questions about why it allows chatbots to tell users they are real people or initiate romantic conversations. The company did, however, say that Big Sis Billy, quote, is not Kendall Jenner and does not purport to be Kendall Jenner. That's their statement. A representative for Jenner declined to comment. And here is Thong Bew Wong Bandu. May he rest in peace. There does seem like there needs to be some protection here for just anybody. You can't have AI chats talking to kids or talking to people like Bew saying, no, I'm real. Here's my address. Should I greet you with a hug and a kiss? Bew's story, told here for the first time, illustrates a darker side of the artificial intelligence revolution now sweeping tech and the broader business world. Yeah, the daughter, Julie Wong Bandu, Bew's daughter, quote, I understand trying to grab a user's attention, maybe to sell them something, but for a bot to say, come visit me, is insane. And I'd agree, it is insane. Meta has publicly discussed its strategy to inject anthropomorphized, I've heard that word, it's just hard to read, chatbots into the online social lives of its billions of users. Chief executive Mark Zuckerberg has mused that most people have far fewer real-life friendships than they'd like, creating a huge potential market for Meta's digital companions. The bots, quote-unquote, probably won't replace human relationships, he said in an April interview with podcaster Dwarkesh Patel. But they will likely complement users' social lives once the technology improves and the quote-unquote stigma of socially bonding with digital companions fades. Here's a quote from Zuckerberg. Over time, we'll find the vocabulary as a society to be able to articulate why that is valuable. See, this is not Meta's trying to sell AI friends to billions of people. They're like, look at this new market. We're gonna make AI friends so you can sit at home and have no real friends and talk to our AI friends. I don't know. That's pretty dystopian. All right. Well, we're gonna move on. Rest in peace, Bew. It is a sad story. This is what happens to your body if your shoes don't fit right. You might not think much about your shoes when running errands, dropping the kids off, picking up groceries, swinging by the pharmacy. And it's true, I really only think of my shoes when I'm running, maybe working out. But the footwear you choose for these everyday moments could be shaping your health more than you realize. Ill-fitting footwear can worsen or cause foot ailments like bunions, corns, calluses, and toenail issues. Your feet are the foundation of your body, says Miguel Cunha, a podiatrist. I think that's so cool too. You can be a doctor and just study feet. She owns a company called Gotham Foot Care. Gotham? Miguel. It's not she, it's a he. You think he's like Batman? Like he comes in and he's got Gotham Foot Care and he's a podiatrist and he takes people's shoes off and they got bunions and he's like he does the Batman voice and all right, we'll keep it going. Having improper footwear or shoes that are not supporting you is going to have an impact on the rest of your body, whether it's from the standpoint of fatigue or creating imbalance in anatomical alignment. Understanding what's behind these changes is the first step in preventing pain that can spread beyond your feet. It does suck when you have foot pain, or I did this long run and my feet were falling asleep, and I swear it made me like almost roll my ankle, or my calves were hurting. My knees were sore after the run. I really think you got to have proper shoes so that your feet are in good shape, or else the rest of your body could really struggle. How your shoes cause pain. To move efficiently and without pain, your feet need footwear that support their natural motion. Every time we walk, our feet need to be able to change shape, says Otto Lamb, a physical therapist at Good Reps Therapy. The heel should strike first, the foot should roll forward, and the toes should spread before pushing off. But the wrong shoe can disrupt this sequence. So again, a little bit back to last episode, I've been running more, and I have really been trying to run efficiently. And I don't know if you guys think about that, even if you're just walking or running, but if you hit like heel first, roll forward, and he's saying the toes spread, Otto, I think that's the guy, and then you go, you're moving way more efficiently. So if you're doing like a long distance run and every step you're rolling the right way, as opposed to like you're just kind of chopping along on the middles of your feet, you're going to be able to move so much further in such, shorter amount of time, running the right way. And it's probably better for your body. That restriction can shorten steps and force the hips and lower back to work harder to move forward. And that's what I'm saying. If it starts in your feet, if the feet aren't working properly, you can have lower back pain. So it's an important article. How to identify shoe-related pain. One of the first things Cunha, which is he's the Batman podiatrist, asks his patients to do is place their shoes on the exam table because the wear patterns tell the story. We all pronate when we walk, which is when our arch collapses. So you have the arch and it goes like that. That's pronate. But if you overpronate, then you're obviously going to have more wear and tear on the inside of the shoe and on the heel. This causes your foot to roll inward, followed by your leg, which can lead to various issues, including plantar fasciitis on the foot, Achilles tendonitis in the ankle, inner knee pain, hip pain, and lower back pain. Very technical here. And this is why sometimes I like National Geographic. They give you some stories that you didn't even know you needed to hear. Think about those shoes. Might be worth investing in a pair that really fits properly. All right, next one here. Very morbid. Probably not a feel-good story, to be honest, but I found it really interesting. I've only looked through it a little bit. Canada is killing itself. The country gave its citizens the right to die. Doctors are struggling to keep up with demand. This is a recent story in The Atlantic. If you don't know the background, I think somewhat recently, Canada made it legal to take yourself out. It's not legal in the United States, and it wasn't legal in Canada for a long time, but they just recently made it legal. Now it says doctors are struggling to keep up with demand. So Great hook here from The Atlantic. I haven't read this article. We'll look through it and see if we find some interesting points. The Euthanasia Conference was held at a Sheraton. Some 300 Canadian professionals, most of them clinicians, had arrived for the annual event. Attendees could look forward to a Friday night social outing with a DJ at an event space above Party Putt in downtown Vancouver. Oh my, I mean, come on. They have a euthanasia conference going to a putt. Is that a putt? Party Putt in downtown Vancouver? So it says over the past decade. So that means that euthanasia has actually been legal in Canada longer than I thought. I thought it was a little more recent. When Canada's Parliament in 2016 legalized the practice of euthanasia, medical assistance in dying, or MAID, M-A-I-D, as it's formally called, it launched an open-ended medical experiment. MAID now accounts for about 1 in 20 deaths in Canada, more than Alzheimer's and diabetes combined. What? I had no idea it was that common. 1 in 20 deaths, more than Alzheimer's and diabetes combined. That's crazy. It is too soon to call euthanasia a lifestyle option in Canada, but from the outset, it has proved a case study in momentum. What? MAID began as a practice limited to gravely ill patients who were already at the end of life, which is what I thought the only way you could use it, by the way. The law was then expanded to include people who were suffering from serious medical conditions but not facing imminent death. So that's the one thing I think, is debatable, is like, you're not going to die soon, but you're suffering horrifically, which has to be super rare. In 2 years, MAID will be made available to those suffering only from mental illness. That's crazy, too. Parliament has also recommended granting access to minors. Wild. At the center of the world's fastest growing euthanasia regime is the concept of patient autonomy. Honoring a patient's wishes is, of course, a core value in medicine, but here it has become paramount. As Canada contends with ever-evolving claims on the right to die, the demand for euthanasia has begun to outstrip the capacity of clinicians to provide it. There have been unintended consequences. Some Canadians who cannot afford to manage their illness have sought doctors to end their life. That is horrible. I don't know how much more of the story I can take. Unintended consequences. You're a Canadian, you can't afford to take care of whatever illness you have, but you can't afford to have a clinician kill you. Like, what? At the same time, medical professionals who decided early on to reorient their career toward assisted death no longer feel compelled to tiptoe around the full, energetic extent of their devotion to MAID. Some clinicians in Canada have euthanized hundreds of patients. Later on in the article, has Canada itself gotten what it wanted? 9 years after the legalization of assisted death, Canada's leaders seem to regard MAID from a strange, almost anthropomorphical remove. It's the second time I've had to read the word anthropomorphical, I think, in this episode. As if the future of euthanasia is no more within their control than the laws of physics. As if continued expansion is not a reality the government is choosing so much as conceding. What are we talking about here? We can't stop the expansion of euthanasia? And they're going to make it legal for anyone with a quote-unquote mental illness? Again, I'm generally for people being able to do what they need to do, especially when it's just affecting them and not other people, as much civil freedom as possible. But it almost just seems like the worst thing you want to promote is death. And this seems like they're promoting death in Canada. I'll look through a little bit more of this. I mean, this is a super long article. I obviously can't read the whole thing, both for time constraints and copyright reasons. Again, I cannot believe that more people die in Canada from euthanasia than Alzheimer's and diabetes combined. 1 in 20 people in Canada die from euthanasia. And Parliament's thinking of opening up to minors. All right. Yeah, we need a pick-me-up story after that one. I found something. Milwaukee Brewers have won 12 games in a row. Come get your free hamburger. The crowd-pleasing, calorie-busting ascent of baseball's winningest team, led by a charismatic, carb-stashing manager by Jason Gay. Look at these guys doing a little triple high five. I love the triple high five. It's rare that I get to pull one off in my modern world. I think maybe the last one was a golf course. Maybe I was on the golf course. I made a putt. But even then, it's more of a double high five. You don't get a triple high five because I might high five two people, but they don't high five. You see, these guys are doing it perfect. Everybody, two hands to another hand between the three of them. It's a happy moment. It's way past time to tell the story of the 2025 Milwaukee Brewers. Do we start with the pancakes or the hamburgers? I don't know what he meant by pancakes, but we're starting with the hamburgers. On Wednesday, the mighty Brew Crew thumped the Pittsburgh Pirates to win their 12th game in a row, triggering an old but rarely activated promise from the Milwaukee-based restaurant chain George Webb. Free hamburgers for everyone. One imagines an anxious George Webb manager, calculator out, doing the math, wondering if enough beef cattle currently graze on planet Earth. They did it! Exclamation point, exclamation point. The official George Webb account tweeted. Please note, burgers will not be ready right away. A special giveaway date will be announced. In other words, don't line up at 4 a.m. for your meat, you lunatics. Jason's doing a great job with this article. Free hamburgers are the latest twist in what has unexpectedly become a Brewers season for the ages. Let's run the numbers quick. 12 in a row, the club's best streak since 2018. And one of only 3 times in company history, George Webb has had to serve gratis beef. Gratis? What is gratis? Gratis beef? Am I missing something? Gratis beef? Let me consult my assistant. I don't know. It doesn't know. I've never stumped ChatGPT before. I don't know what it means. Free of charge. Jason, you're too smart. Only 3 times have they had to serve gratis beef, or also known as free beef. These Brewers actually had an 11-game win streak in July, sparing bovines then by dropping the 12th. I want a vocabulary like these journalists. They write a lot, so they pick up these sparing bovines. You just work that in. I like that. The Brewers are 76-44 atop the NL Central, the winningest club in the major leagues. They pitch well, they hit well, they know how to run. This is a low payroll, small market team sprinting away from baseball's profligate behemoths. They possess one of the most loyal fan bases in the game, with a park full of obsessives. They have a manager who eats pancakes he keeps in his back pocket. This is what they were talking about with the pancakes. Folks, if you haven't already, it's time for you to become acquainted with Brewers manager and spiritual leader Pat Murphy. Here's Pat. Murphy, 66, is a baseball lifer. And yeah, it looks like he keeps pancakes in his back pocket during the game if he's looking for a snack. A phenomenon was born. Murph's pocket pancakes are now on sale at the ballpark. $4.99 with maple syrup or strawberry dipping sauce. No elastic waistband trousers included. Anyway, congrats to the Brewers. 12 wins in a row. I mean, so is the streak still alive? I think it would be. Let's look at Brewers' recent games. Wow. Yeah, look at the 12 wins. They got the Reds tomorrow night. Happy for the Brewers. Okay, a couple quick ones here. We'll hit these. They're a little bit financially related. Back to the Journal. Blue states hunt for ways to wring more taxes from the wealthy by Juliet Chung. Let's just look at a quick summary. Several blue states and cities are considering a boost in taxes on the wealthy to offset existing budget deficits or potential federal funding shortfalls. States are looking at income, capital gains, and luxury real estate taxes. Studies indicate that the rich are less likely to move because of tax hikes if they have strong community ties. So, I mean, I live in South Florida. We have no income tax. And we have property tax, but we've seen a lot of people come down from New York And what the wealthy do is they have a Florida home and they have a home in the Northeast. I think the law is you have to spend 180 days in a certain as a resident in a certain state to be have that be considered your residency for tax purposes. Let me make sure that's right. I was almost right. State income tax or residency, most states use some variation of the 183-day rule. So you have to live in a certain state for 183 days, and then you can claim that state as your state of residence. So what rich people do is they at least claim that they live in Florida 183 days out of the year, and then they spend the rest of their time at their Manhattan apartment and jet set around the world, and then they pay no state income tax. Are all of these rich people actually living in Florida 183 days? I don't know. I think it's pretty split. Florida's really nice from like late November, early December, all the way through April. My hometown empties out middle of summer because it's so hot. I'm like just north of Palm Beach, and there's a lot of wealthy people in Palm Beach, so that you can even tell like the roads and everything are way, way less crowded in summer. And then they call them the snowbirds. They come down to Florida in the winter. Yeah, and I kind of missed this part, but a lot of the state legislators are looking for higher tax revenue because there's going to be federal funding shortfalls related to the new tax cuts that Trump put through on the federal side. Okay, we're staying informed. Last quick story here, and it's more of just a story in chat session, but mortgage rates slipped to lowest level of 2025, which was great to see. When I was at my last job, I had a couple buddies go buy new homes, and it was tough because they went and bought homes after the interest rates went up. So when inflation happened in like 2021, the Fed really hiked interest rates. It obviously affected mortgages. So before that inflationary period, you could get a mortgage at 2.5%, 3%, and your monthly payment was much lower than what it is when the mortgage rate is 7%, 8%. Mortgage rates are falling at least a little bit, at least for now. So they fell to 6.58%. That's the lowest since October of 2024, offering hope to prospective buyers sidelined by high rates and prices. You know, I'm 26, Gen Z. I feel like a lot of Gen Z really want to buy a home, and it's just tough. I mean, I know it depends what part of the country you're in, and South Florida's not the best spot to try to go pick up homes. But with mortgage rates going down, maybe that can become a little more affordable. I rent, I have a nice apartment, but it would be cool to start looking at maybe buying a home. Everyone's situation is different, but when mortgages are lower, it becomes a little more realistic. President Trump has repeatedly pressured Federal Chair Jerome Powell to cut interest rates and argued it would help home affordability. And then again, like, I don't know, there's different arguments like, oh, you lower rates, the price of homes will just skyrocket again, which it did during inflation and in some of these different periods. So just because you lower interest rates doesn't mean homes necessarily become more affordable, but the financing of the homes does become more affordable. So we'll see. Hopefully we can all have our dream home someday. All right, that's it for today. Those are the most important stories of the day, according to yours truly. Let's finish off here on quote of the day. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Steve Jobs. Goodbye.